Hey guys, and welcome to the Cardinals Nation 24/7 podcast. I am your host, Chris Lollis, the bearded dragon, and with me as always is the living legend, Larry Cox. How you doing tonight, Larry?
All right, Chris, what's going on, buddy?
Well, it's been a week since our last show, and the trade deadline has came and gone. And I think a lot of Cardinal fans weren't too pleased with the moves that were made, but the Cardinals did go out and acquire a couple lefties, 37 and 38-year-old J.A. Happ from the Minnesota Twins and Jon Lester from the Washington Nationals. We had to part with John Gant in order to get Happ, and we parted ways with what was his name?
Lane Thomas.
Thomas, yeah, to get Jon Lester. So, looking at what that is for the team the remainder of the year, and this is a team that really it's competing for a wild card spot, but they're 10 and a half games out of first place. So this wasn't a team that was going to give up a lot of prospects to get a top tier talent to make a run. So just looking at it on paper and seeing what Lester did last night, what are your thoughts on the two moves that the Cardinals made?
I honestly think this was a good move by Mo. I think it was a safe bet. He wasn't surrendering this season, but yet he's saying, hey, if we don't get on a run, then we're not going to give a bunch of prospects and give up the future either. So I kind of like the move. These guys both come in. They've got experience. It moves Oviedo and those guys around a little bit, maybe gives them time to mature a little bit. Hey, they can reflect on how bad their season was, that the chances he got. Gant really didn't have a future with us. We've seen that. I was a big proponent of him coming in and being a starter this year. I mean, I own up to it. He just fell on his face. Lane Thomas, as we know, his future was marked as well. He got his chances. It just didn't work out. So you kind of rid yourself of a couple players. The two players we picked up, they're not going to be here next year, so it doesn't matter. So this guy's going to eat innings. Then after, Lester's debacle in the first inning last night, kind of goes to show you that basically he was here to eat innings because they left him in. I mean, if he wasn't here for that, they would have pulled him. Anybody else, they'd have pulled him after that inning.
Yeah, I mean, when I first heard the news, because I was watching MLB Network and we were down to the wire. We were linked to be maybe in on Trevor's story, and that came from some legit sources. Even a Rockies reporter had linked the Cardinals to it. Come to find out later, Mozeliak had made the comment that when he woke up the day of the deadline, he was all but sure that we were going to have somebody that we didn't end up getting. But he did say that was a non-position player. So that makes you think that maybe they weren't in on him. In my opinion, if that is the case, I think maybe they were in on Barrios from the Twins. And with him moving on to Toronto, we already had conversations going with the Twins. And, it was that was the team we were playing, at the time. And it was kind of, well, maybe John Gant for Happ, I don't know that that's a plan B necessarily, but I think, he's come out and said it, that these guys are brought in to eat innings. And that's something that at this point in the season, when you've got guys like Oviedo and Woodford that are struggling up here, we want to see the young kids play, but they have had opportunities and they haven't produced. So is it detrimental to keep them up and keep getting blown up, as opposed to send them to Memphis, get some confidence built up. And in the meantime, you've got two veteran arms that really they've got playoff experience. They've got, real good veteran presence. Maybe not an innings eater in the fact that they can give you 8 innings or something, but if they can give you 5 or 6, that's more than our young guys have been giving us. So I think it was a move that made sense. It wasn't much to get excited about, but it definitely made a lot of sense from my standpoint.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that these guys are brought in, and I mean, if their arms fall off, who cares? They're going to retire anyway, more than likely. So, and then maybe they come in and they breathe a fresh air into some. Yeah, maybe Happ comes in and pitches well. I mean, we don't know. Maybe Lester is just a little rusty. Comes in, he shakes off the rust, and maybe that one kid's listening in the dugout, hears him say the right things, and he appeals to that kid. I mean, we don't know. But we know with Flaherty coming back, that makes a little difference as well. Sometimes you just getting your players back is better than a trade you could make. I think we were in on the Gibson, Kyle Gibson. I think we were in on him, and I think Barrios is the two guys that we were looking at. But I don't think that either one of those two would have made a big difference maker for us this year, and especially not next year, because I think we're back to a logjam next year. Even if Waino doesn't come back, you add Hudson back in the mix and Flaherty. And then you've got, some other kids. And then, like I said, if you're talking about Reyes starting, why block those guys with a guy like Gibson or Barris that's coming in that may create more of a havoc than it's worth? So, and then you give up a Gorman or a Liberatore, you're not really gaining anything. So you might as well just play out the season and let it go.
Yeah, I'll agree with you in the fact that I wouldn't want to give up top tier prospects to get, say a Max Scherzer or something like that, especially when if you're hell bent on getting him, you can sign him in the off season, and not have to give up anything. The thing that worries me is, have that confidence going into next year is the same confidence we had this year where we said we had a plethora of young arms that we were going to give experience to. It didn't really pan out the way that we thought it would. With Hudson coming back from injury, you don't exactly know what you're going to get out of him. Hicks, as you said, Mazalek's talked about maybe having him be a starter next year. I don't know that that's the right move, but who knows? Wainwright, we don't know if he'll be back or not. But there are seemingly enough starting pitchers in the organization to not have to go outside the organization. But in my opinion, if they're going to compete, they really need to lock down not just an innings eater, but an elite starter and address the shortstop this offseason.
Yeah, I agree there because we and I have talked, daily. Our outfield seems like it's pretty much locked in now. I think we're going to go with what we have. You're not going to replace third base or first base. So you're only really two positions you can move is second or short or possibly, a starting pitcher. And then right now we don't know what happens with Yachty. Maybe Yachty's going to retire as well because, his age is really starting to show a little bit more now as the season wanes on. So maybe him and Wayno are both gone. I don't know. I just, that's the only place I can see because even if they add the DH, you're looking at maybe Gorman being a DH. He's playing second base right now at AAA, but I haven't really watched, so I don't know the results there, how well defensively he's played, but I would say he's a pretty good athlete that he could probably do it. Who knows? Matt Carpenter pulled it off for a year. So, and I'd say Gorman, younger legs and probably a better athlete overall, but I think in the offseason, I think that brings up, like you said, do we pursue a Max Scherzer or maybe some of these other guys that are out there? But you're taking a big step down once you get beyond Scherzer. Who's the next guy up that you're looking at that's the possible difference maker in our lineup?
Well, I at a glance, some of the free agent pitchers that are coming up, I like a Carlos Rodon for the White Sox, that not 30 years old and, pitching pretty elite. And those are like, in my opinion, your second tier type of, you're not going to have to go out and, pay buku bucks for guys like that, but it wouldn't hurt to get one, and then as we've said before, the shortstop free agent class, Baez and Correa and Story and Simeon, that's probably a need that Paul DeYoung batting 201. I think he is what he is at this point. And that's something I think the Cardinals need to address. The DH will probably be happening. I'm not sure that I give that spot to Gorman right away, though. Like you said, the outfield's pretty well locked in. The corners are too. And even if Wainwright and Yachty come back, I think it's shortstop and a starting pitcher that will help this team out. And the young guys, they can just come up and be slaughtered in the pen. I don't want to go out and spend a lot of money on, a relief pitcher. I think our relievers aren't as bad as what they have been at times this year. I think it's just inexperience and, at some point you got to give these guys some experience.
So what would you say about an Edman moving to short and Gorman a second, and then you trade DeYoung maybe for a pitcher? That's the kind of thing I can foresee because that's kind of the Mo, that's kind of his MO, so to speak, pun intended.
Yeah, by doing that though, giving up on DeYoung, you're not going to get much in return unless you're attaching something to that. And the top tier level pitchers, I think it'd be better and more in Mo's wheelhouse to do it in free agency than via trade. For some reason, it's the asking price of the Cardinals seems to be higher than most teams, it seems like. I think he hits better in free agency than he does on the trade market. Having said that, he did pull off the incredible Arenado trade, but
he got Goldman and he got Goldie too. So
yeah, it has worked out, but as far as the standings go, as of recording this, we're 10.5 games out of first place. I think we're 7.5 out of the wild card. it's mind-boggling when you look across the league at some of the moves that teams in contention did make to get better. And it's not a knock on Mo for not going all in on people. Like I said, when you're that far out, I think you go the route that he went, even if it isn't sexy. But to see Baez go to the Mets and Rizzo to the Yankees and Bryant to the Giants, the Cubs dismantling was that was fun to watch, from our vantage point. And then to get Lester, even though he is not the Lester of old, I think that was kind of like a swift kick in the nuts to Cub fans. Like, oh shit, man, are you serious? So that was kind of crazy to see, but also to see the Dodgers load up by getting Scherzer and Turner just blows my mind. I mean, the rich get richer, so to speak.
Well, and that's the thing too. I mean, what they say, like 175 players changed teams, and like 75 former All-Stars. So. Yeah. So if you're going against the Dodgers and you're John Mozeliak and you're trying to get, to satisfy our fan base, you're going to go after Turner and Scherzer in a deal. You're cleaning out the cupboard, and that's all there is to it. I don't care what anybody says about top 100 prospects or anything else. Even like Rizzo, I think the Yankees actually got a steal on Rizzo. I think they really did. Then you look at like Baez. What did you really get in Baez? I mean, you get a free swinger. You never know what you're going to get. He's got a head case at times. So, a player of that caliber, I don't think him coming into our situation would help us in any way. So I think a lot of times fans forget that you still have that thing called chemistry you have to kind of go by. And I just don't see those type of personalities fitting here. Kris Bryant, I would have loved to seen them trade for him just for the fact that what he said last year about the Cardinals in St. Louis. And just stick him in the outfield and say, hi, there, now you're stuck in the boring town you don't like, at least for a year. But I just, like I said, some of them are mind-boggling. Trading for injured players, knowing they're coming back. I mean, how many outfielders did Atlanta trade for? At least 4 that I think I counted. And so, I mean, that's tough, man, especially what they got. They got a young center fielder coming back, or a young outfielder coming back next year. So they've loaded up on prospects and players, I should say, position players. And I think that's what Milwaukee did for years and years. They always needing pitching. And what they do, they go get bats. It made no sense, And I think for us personally, I think that to stay kind of pat where we are, if it makes sense, see what these kids can do, plug them in. And like we were talking just before we came on, I said, if I was Schilt right now, I'd be moving Carlson all over the batting order until I found the spot where that kid's hitting 300. If he's batting third and Arenado has to bat second, just so that kid hits 300, great. He's going to be here a long time. Let's get used to him being someplace. But move guys around. Hell, plug DeYoung in it. Let him start off and lead off a game. I don't care. Let him try something different. We're losing. I don't care at this point. Let's shut it down. Let's worry about next year. I really don't care. I want to see Herrera. Bring him up. Let him catch. That's the way I look at it. So.
You sound like my grandpa when I was talking to him earlier, and he knows how baseball works, on starting people's, MLB
clock, right.
He's like, at this point, I would DFA Carpenter. I'd say, hey, see you later. Yep. I'd tell all these young kids, come on up. I'd get rid of, say, Lester, thanks for the one start. I hit the road and just like call up Memphis basically and say, okay, these guys ain't getting it done. Let's see what you guys got. And ideally, that's not going to happen. But, like you said, looking around, the league, just some of the moves that were made, like it seems like every team that was in contention at least went out and tried to get better. I mean, the Brewers, they get Escobar. The Yankees did get Rizzo, but they also got Joey Gallo, which I think that's going to be a threat, in that ballpark at least. The Dodgers, they got loaded up, and then today I think Cole Hamels signed with them, so they've got potentially. I mean, I don't even know how to go through all the Cy Young awards that those pitchers have had, but the Dodgers, I don't know. Going into the season, I thought they'd run away with that division, and the Giants have been just playing out of their mind.
Well, they're for real, man. They're for real. They're playing good baseball.
And for us, I know we've always thought, hey, if we're going to have a shot at the playoffs, it's going to have to be winning the division, because the West is where the wild card is going to, come from. San Diego, they got some rough news with Tatis being injured. And that might be a team that could falter here where we could, make a run there.
Right now, I think the team that scares me right now is the Braves and the Reds making a run. The Reds are kind of just laying back in the weeds. I think they could make the run, but how would you like to be the San Diego fan base right now? You've got 300 million guys sitting in the infield, and you're not even beating the Giants, And so, as much as we are our fans, begroan all the time about, oh yeah, we don't spend enough money. Tell the Padres, go call the Yankees. Let me know how they're sitting at home in October because they didn't go get pitching. They went and got more bats. I just don't even, unless Gallo's coming in to throw pitching, I don't know what the thought process there was. I realized their outfield was in trouble. I get it. But like we've always said, you could have that 200 hitter that can play defense, but you can't have three of them. But yet you're going to add another bat and you still didn't go get any pitching, and your pitching's giving up the runs.
Yeah.
So,
you could look at it too, like, how would you like to be a Padres fan thinking that you had a deal with Scherzer, because they woke up that day and that was blasted everywhere. Scherzer's a Padre, and I'm thinking, well, damn, they're all in on this.
Sounds like a David Price move to me.
Yeah, and really the Padres, they went out and they addressed pitching when they got Clevinger, although he's been hurt. Snell has not been the Snell that he is, and Yu Darvish, they've got some pretty good pitching, and Joe Musgrove. They've got pitching and they've got hitting, but that might be a team that could falter and could be the Cardinals' way in. But the Brewers are kind of playing a little bit like the Giants, just outside of their talent level, I believe. I thought they would come back down to earth eventually, but they're putting it together. And, that's a team that, if we're going to catch, I'm looking at their schedule, I'm looking at Cincinnati's schedule and the Cardinals' schedule. We all have a pretty fairly easy schedule the rest of the way. And that doesn't bode well for the Cardinals when those two teams that you're trying to leapfrog have just as easy as a schedule as what we do.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that we said early on that we knew the Brewers were going to be tough at home, but their pitching has really surprised the hell out of me this year. Their pitching has really sustained, and even in the beginning of the year when we had our preseason picks, I really didn't think their starting pitching was this good. I really didn't. Then, they moved around some pieces and it's actually worked out well. And Wong has not really been a factor for them that often this year, but he's still hitting. He still plays Gold Glove defense. I just, like I said, some of these teams' moves makes no sense to me. Like Toronto, I don't get them going all in on this year. It didn't make any sense to me. They made a big run, gave up a lot of prospects. I guess when you're already that young anyway, at that level, it's time to add the pieces for the future, I guess. But they were going out and getting guys that are going to be free agents next year, and they're not catching Boston, and they're not going to catch Tampa, and they've got the Yankees in there as well. So I just don't understand that mix at all. That's kind of one of those weird deals where you're like, well, what is that, just to appease the fans, to say, hey, look, we gave it a shot? I just don't know. I don't understand it. Because like now, I think it was yesterday that Tampa, that's the first time that they've been in the lead in the American League East, and Boston has it for the whole year. But they kicked the crap out of Boston over the weekend. So it's that, I guess that's why we play the game instead of writing it down and getting out trophies.
Yeah, in baseball, it's a crazy game because everybody thinks just, on paper what a team's supposed to do is what they're going to do. And, prime example is we've got this series right now with the Braves, and, they mentioned last night that at no point this season has, the Atlanta Braves been over 500.
Right.
And then you look at their team, and I know they're without Acuna right now, but, they had him, and they had Ozuna, and they've got Albies, and they've got Swanson. They've got a really tough team, and to be play all season and not reach 500, that's just kind of mind-boggling. So it's not always the best teams that win, and I get it. Our fan base is wanting to pile on when you got Arenado. That everybody was ecstatic with that, and it was like, okay, if you're going to do this, solidify and make that one more impact move. And I think that's coming back to bite us just a little bit, but hindsight's 2020, because we had all these arms that, we didn't know Flaherty was going to get injured. We didn't know that Michaelis was not going to pitch the majority of the year. So, I mean, you can't go back and be like, okay, well, it would have made sense to get a starting pitcher or something. We didn't know that Carlos Martinez was going to be out. You can't predict these things. But I think knowing what the season has been so far, this is reason for Mozeliak this offseason to be like, okay, we can't just look at what we've got. We've got to kind of cover the bases on different scenarios because we don't know what we're getting back in Hudson and Michaelis and all these guys. So, go ahead and solidify it, make that one big move. And I think you really need to do that, especially after getting Arenado. And then if Yadi and Waino want one more year, you really want that window to be, let's do it for 1 year. It's not going to kill the team, especially with that much money coming off the books.
And I just, like I said, again, I mean, I know the consensual pick is that let's go get Trevor Story. My problem is I look at his numbers outside of, he really doesn't impress me. He really doesn't. I would have liked a Trey Turner over at him. But I think Simeon's the guy that we end up with. I just have that feeling. I think he's more the Moat type of a pick, unless maybe Arenado calls his buddy one night and says, hey, bro, guess what? We love St. Louis, man. You'll love it here. Take a deal, defer some money. I don't know. That's the only way I can see him coming, but I can see us getting a Seager or us getting Simeon. I don't see us making a big run at that, but man, you look at that Yankees $297 million and you look at the Dodgers and you look at that and you say, what the hell? How are you going to compete with that? And so I think you have to stockpile. You have to start that run now. And my only problem is what's going to happen this labor agreement. That's what scares me about this offseason. We've got contract negotiations going on, and who knows, maybe players are saying, we got to stop. I mean, what has there been 6, 7 domestic dispute guys have been lost? Trevor Bauer's got paid what, $300 million or whatever it was, 270, whatever it was. And he's not even playing right now because some woman said this or he said that or whatever happened. I'm not getting to the semantics of that. But again, you got a guy sitting at home right now that you're paying big bucks to until there's a definite answer. And so that's always been my fear with these guys, $300 million. You're paying a kid with 1 year of experience in the major leagues. He made $350 million is what you signed him to for a 10-year, 12-year deal. He's going to be sitting at home the rest of the year. Maybe next year his career's over. You don't know. I mean, a lot of worse things have happened in baseball that the guy doesn't return from that. And that's my biggest fear of these big contracts. It always has been. And Nolan Arenado, I mean, he's a difference maker with the glove. He really is. I don't care if he hits 100. He still makes a difference. But, how many of those guys can you add and still compete, but yet be year to year a competition? Because those guys are going to take long terms of contracts. They're going to set up for long term. You're going to be dying and killing your prospects because you got, what was it? The prospects now behind Yachty weren't even born when he started catching. I mean, that kind of thing, And so that's the thing. These kids are there just sitting and waiting for their chance. And if you're playing third base, like Gorman said, oh crap, I better get me another glove and learn another position because I'm not playing third base the next 10 years,
Right. And the thing about, me going back to saying baseball's a crazy game is, we're in a position right now that as fans, it's hard to be 10.5 games out and to be excited. Like I'm going to watch every ball game. I'm a Cardinal fan. That's what I'm going to do. But I'll admit when you are already looking at what the Brewers and the Reds are doing and hoping that they lose and you're still 2 months left of the season and doing that, that's not a fun feeling. But it's not something that we're used to. A lot of fan bases, that's what they deal with on a regular. So, I know we point this out, ad nauseum, but, when fans go crazy about us not competing or whatever, and it's like, how would you like to be a Mariners fan and not make the playoffs for 20 seasons? I mean, I can't imagine. 20 years is a long ass time. I look back at the 2011 World Series and I'm thinking that seems like forever ago, and in a way it was, but 20 years without a playoff berth, I couldn't imagine that. And there again, there's no blueprint. We talked about it too, that the Angels, they've got Mike Trout, the best player in baseball. They've got Shohei Ohtani, the face of baseball. They went out and got one of the best third baseman free agents in Rendon, who's now out of for the year, and they're 10.5 games out of first, and they're not making any kind of run.
Well, I mean, I've got the Brewers schedule up here. They play San Francisco 7 times in the next 3 weeks, or next month, I guess I should say. They play San Francisco. They play Cincinnati for 3 games. They play Philadelphia for 3 games. Then they play the Mets, and then they come back and they play us, and they got the Dodgers for the last series of the season. So the reality is, if they played 500 baseball, we could actually catch them. I mean, we really could, but at the same time, we're playing those same teams. So it could happen. It really could. I mean, 2011 was such an electric year that fans, all we remember is, David Freese and Berkman's home runs. We forget that our bullpen carried us that last part of the season. Our offense disappeared completely in 2011 after the All-Star break for a while. It just was gone. But we couldn't lose. I mean, our bullpen saved 1-run games. They pitched lights out. I'm not saying it's going to happen again, but I'm just saying it could happen. And so that's the thing with me. I've never, ever said, hey, let's give up. Let's quit. Shut the doors. But I have said, if it's not working, quit trying to force it to work. It's not going to work. So why aren't we trying different kids in the outfield, or why aren't we playing a different kid at shortstop, or, hell, call up Delta Perez, let him play short. I don't care. I mean, hell, he's sitting in AAA right now. Give the kid a shot. Let Sosa play shortstop every night. I don't care, but do something different. Why is Yachty still behind the plate every game when we're losing? I mean, let's see what Kneser can play. That's my mindset, I guess, is a little bit different than everybody else's. Everybody wants to see Yachty finish it out. But if you're losing and he's going 0 for 4, what have you accomplished as a team? And last time I checked, it's a team game.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely a team game. And that's kind of what's crazy with, individuals that, like, say Bader, had the best July that you could ask for, and was one of, voted on the MLB July team, in center field, and, hitting over 300 for the month. And how do you not start that guy batting leadoff? Just, ride that hot bat right now. I mean, because Carlson, like you said, you could move him anywhere. Why not try something different? And that's, I'm not blaming everything on Schilt, but sometimes it's like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But if it's broken, it's insanity to do the same thing over and over and over again. And when we see some of these lineups out there where, DeYoung struggling, 200 hitter, Sosa, when he comes in off the bench, he's a spark plug. Go ahead and let Sosa play for 3 or 4 games in a row. Let some momentum happen. I hated to hear Schilt's post-game interview where, when he was asked about the remainder of the season, he's basically saying, if we win every series, I feel comfortable with that. Well, that's good and dandy. I mean, that'd be nice if we can do that. But you can't just have that mentality of, oh, well, we want to win 2 out of 3 here and, win 3 out of 4. You want to, hey, we're going to win every game, type of mentality. Obviously, you're not going to win every game, but you can't go in with just, I mean, at the beginning of the year, yeah, you can have that mentality, win every series. But at this point, it's like do or die time. Like every game, you need to play like it's, your play-in game. And that's where I don't see a lot of fire from this team. And I think a lot of it is because of not getting momentum going. I mean, it seems like we win a game, we lose a game, we're at 500. We win a game, we lose a game, we're back at 500. It's mind-boggling. It's been a crazy season for the Cardinals, and it's hard to get excited about them. But we do look at the silver lining, where Tyler O'Neill was on base 4 times last night, and, Carlson has, done what we expected out of him. So, I mean, there's been some bright spots for the team, and, we don't want to overshadow what the good that has happened with guys like Carpenter that just hasn't been what he needed to be, or Yachty, kind of showing his age now. I mean, he started off hot. Now he's kind of I think he's worn out, So, I mean, at the end of the day, I think a lot of Cardinal fans, it's hard for them to see any of the good when you focus so much on the bad, but there has been a mixed bag of both.
I mean, the thing is, I agree with part of what you said about Bader, but my biggest thing is that if he's hitting in the 7 or 8 hole, whatever he's hitting, he's successful there. Why screw with his mentality and move him to another place where maybe he doesn't succeed, and you're back to the Bader of 110 and swinging at things in the dirt. So we're trying to build that confidence moving forward for 2022. And I think at some point the organization has to say 2021 is over. So let's focus on 2022. Let's see what these guys can do. Let's figure it out. Are we on a farewell tour for Waino and Yachty, or are we trying to win games? Are we trying to build for next year? I mean, you have to have a direction. And right now, I don't think there is a true direction. And I think what happened was, I think John Mozeliak picked up the phone last offseason. He called Colorado and he threw a bunch of crap on the wall. And the guy said, I'm willing to talk. And I think, oh, wait a minute, what? You're willing to make a trade for Gomber and this guy, and we get Arenado, and you pay part of his. Great, we'll take him. Now what do we do? And I think that's what happened. I think we were intent to let Edman play third, Carp play at second base a little bit. And then use whoever at second base in and out. And then next year make a big run and bring in those young guns and all of them come up together. And I think it was like, oh crap, we got Arenado. Now what do we do? I really do think that's how it happened. And I think that at times I would just love to be a fly on the wall in some of these conversations. And I guess I am a money ball junkie, I guess. My wife always kids me because if it's on, I'm watching it, and I realize it's on every day on some channel somewhere. And so I'm like, those conversations where he says, he's sitting there in the Indians at the beginning with Shapiro, and he says, let's just put it this way, you can't afford me. And it's like, right. What? Whatever, even if I could trade him to you, can't afford him. And so, and that's, I think, is a mentality sometimes of some of these guys. And I'm not sure what DeWitt is going on with him as far as, because really he hasn't come out and said anything. I mean, like last year he was, you kind of seen him. He came out in the forefront. He came out and he said, oh yeah, I like the way the direction the team's going and all this. Nothing. I mean, I haven't heard him nothing. I mean, maybe he's gotten to the point where his kids are taking over and he's out. I don't know. I mean, that's my whole point. And so, there's always that kiss of death. The owner says, we love John Mozeliak. Oh, we fired him, But I think there's an overhaul of just their basic understanding of the game, and I'm not sure which way it's going. I don't get the Jeff Alberts thing for the life of me. This guy has not impressed me. I understand seeing more pitches. I understand trying to get in the bullpen. I get all that, but we're not doing that either because we're watching 3 pitches for strikes. So it makes no sense to me, their direction. I like Maddox. I think he's one of the best pitching coaches there is, but you got to have something to work with. And right now he's working with triple and double A team right now. And then he's got the geriatrics now. So, I mean, hell, he's probably just the same age as some of the guys he's going down the mountain to talk to now. Him and Happ are probably the same age,
You should be calling them up and pitching some insurance ideas to this.
I told him, hey, I got Medicare, bro. Call me.
There you go. But looking at this team too, and to go back to the schedule, the Cardinals, I believe, play the Brewers 13 more times this season. So like that can be a chance for the Cardinals to really put a dent in things too. And, not to bounce from topic to topic, but, you and I have both, we voiced this in the Cardinals Nation 24/7 group, and we get labeled being Mo apologist because we don't blame Mo for everything, and there are things I wish he would do a little different. And his overall body of work, I don't complain about it. I mean, I would like to see at times, more aggressiveness, on certain things. But at the end of the day, like you said, to be a fly on the wall, we don't know that John Mozeliak didn't pick up the phone and say, we want Trevor Story. And Colorado's like, we ain't dicking with you again, after they're not, I'm hanging up, and then we call and we're like, okay, we really don't want to part with top prospects, but we want Scherzer. And the Nationals say, well, we want Gorman and Liberatore. Obviously, you're not going to do that. So what if he says, well, okay, what about Thompson and, Kisner? No, no deal. We don't know that those conversations don't happen. And we also don't know that if there's a player out there that could put this team over the top, that Mo doesn't go to DeWitt and say, hey, this is the guy that, is going to complement getting Arenado, that's going to complement getting Goldschmidt, that, this is going to be our window. And DeWitt says, I can't. I can't fork out that kind of money. So is that Mo's fault? I mean, it's easy for us, or some fans to say that, but if it were them in the role of president of baseball operations and they had somebody to answer to, it's not a limitless wallet, And when they say the wallet is closed, it's not closed. He does a good job of, not, like you said, spending $300 million on something that could be a train wreck. Do I think he could do a little bit more? Yes, I do, but I don't like the style of the Dodgers and Yankees spending that kind of money when, as we've said before, the Yankees haven't won a World Series since we have. The Dodgers won theirs last year in a shortened season, but hadn't won one since 1988. And look at all the money and players that they've had in and out of that organization. It's bananas, really.
Well, I think the other thing we forget is that St. Louis doesn't have that steady stream of talent coming through that some of these other teams, the Bostons and those guys do. But when you look at it, why does Boston have that much talent to trade? Because they've made those trades a couple of years ago. Remember when Theo left to go to the Cubs? They cleaned house. They had a fire sale. They cleaned out because they had all those huge, nasty contracts that he left behind. And, wait a minute, didn't he just do that in Chicago too? Well, St. Louis, we don't have fire sales. That doesn't happen. Second, our tier from level 1 prospects to level 2, there's a big step off. It's not like a Dodgers, we've got the 5th best player in the top 100. We got the 80th guy, and then we got the 101 guy. We have the guy that's at 40, and maybe got 80, and then maybe at 130. And that's the difference is our fans don't see that. And that's because we have been competitive for so long that to be that competitive every year, we filled holes through the draft, through bringing those players up, and then maybe trading a player before he became that guy, like a Zach Gallion and those guys, Randy or Alcantara, those guys. We traded them to fill those holes at the major league level. You can't blame Mo for the Ozuna fiasco. You can't. I'm sorry. Now, his injuries that everybody wants to complain about, yes, his shoulder was nagging shoulder. They were told it was fine. They did the medical report. All that was fine, or the trade wouldn't have went through. In spring training, he dove for a ball and he landed on the shoulder. He missed 2 games in spring training that year, and the shoulder was never the same afterwards. There's no way you can foretell that's going to happen. You just can't. And it's just like this year. Nobody expects Flaherty to get hurt. He's a young kid. But you know what? Like they said, anytime those kids pick up a ball, you can throw a shoulder out, you throw an arm out, your career could be over with every pitch. Well, that happens in the outfield. How many times you see it? Well, like Bader diving for a ball and he lands on the ball and cracks 3 ribs, that it just happens. And so no matter how good the team is, you cannot have those other parts available to fill in for your major league roster, or they wouldn't be sitting at AAA if they were that good. The Dodgers had to go outside of their organization to get Betts. They had to go outside to get Scherzer. They had to go get Turner. Even Turner at third base was not a Dodger. They had to go outside the organization to get those guys. And that's the problem. I think our fans miss that part, is that those guys were put together and assembled outside the organization. If you look at our roster across the board, we're mostly Cardinals brought up prospects for the most part. And yeah, we have Goldie and we have Arenado and those guys. I get it. But that's what you do. You fill in those holes that your organization couldn't homegrown. And we thought for how many years, Bader plays Gold Glove defense. I don't care what you say about his hair. I don't care about his looks. I don't care about his suits. The guy plays Gold Glove defense every day. He brings that. His hitting started to come around. We see it now. He's not swinging at that crap in the left-hand batter's box. And O'Neill, now the power's back. He's hitting the ball, and he's hitting it into all fields again. So, and he plays Gold Glove defense because he still has Gold Glove. He's still left fielder, Gold Glove holder. And then of course we got Carlson, the young kid. Now you've got first and third. two potential Gold Glove winners again. So where is the cry for who do you replace? You know, whether we like it that Paul DeJong is hitting 110 or 210, whatever, he still plays very, very good defense. Now, it may be positioning or not, but it's still good defense. He's not flashy. He's not, he's not Trevor Story. He's not those other guys making those throws from the hole. Call the Mets. Ask them how that went with Lindor. They traded and signed him, and now he's not really performing to the level they wanted. So I think you always get that mixed bag. And to say, hey, this is Mo's fault because he assembled the team, Mo will say it's his fault. He will tell you that. He's never once shied away from it. But at the same time, he's the same guy saying, hey, what about these 25 winning seasons? How come I'm not getting credit for those? So, and I think we're holding Mo hostage since we haven't won a World Series since 2011. But like you said, so do we fire 29 general managers every year because they didn't win the World Series? Could you imagine? I'm trying to think of the guy's name. That's the Padres GM right now. Him walk in the owner and say, "Hey, I know I dropped $300 million on Machado, and I know I dropped $300 million on him. I know I went and got traded away all our prospects we get pitching this year. And by the way, I've got this guy Hosmer at first that's really not succeeding, and now I got Cronenworth, and I'm sorry about the money I spent, but we're not winning the World Series this year." That's the difference. I would rather go to the owner and say, "Hey, I made you a profit this year, so can we spend up next year?"
Yeah, and I mean, how many seasons in a row were the Padres irrelevant, leading up to this? And I get that's something that our fans don't think about is when you play losing baseball and you draft higher, you're going to accumulate, better farm systems because you've got so many top picks. And when we go in and we compete year in and year out, then we're stuck, middle of the pack when it comes to prospects. Unless we're, occasionally making a trade and acquiring, one. Just our draft status alone, I think we do a good job of evaluating talent, for what we're drafting. At times, I do think it's, a little position heavy where we go all starting pitching for a few years. And then, then you're looking at it like, okay, well, we could use a shortstop or we could use a third baseman. They've kind of went away from that in the recent, past here where they've got some outside of pitching, but it looks like they're doing that again with this past draft. We'll go back to, the Cardinals playoff chances when we get ready to wrap things up. But, something cool did happen for the Cardinals where they retired Ted Simmons' number. And that I thought that was awesome. And they put a statue outside of Busch Stadium. So that was a very cool thing to see and doesn't get much fanfare as far as, everybody wants to complain how the team's playing, but something like that was a very cool thing. What were your thoughts on seeing Simba get his number retired and the statue?
Well, as you know, Ted Simmons is probably my second favorite player of all time, Cardinal. Milesy Smith jersey I'm wearing tonight, and Ted Simmons. I actually met Ted. We were at the National Card Convention up in Chicago one year, and I had him sign a bat for me. And I said, as a child, that year that he was traded to the Brewers was probably the worst thing that happened to me that whole year. And he says, "How do you think I felt?" It never dawned on me. He's a person, and he thought, he said, "Dude," he said, "I love the Cardinals." And he said, "I got shipped across the state basically to a team that nobody wanted to go play for. Then we play them in the World Series, And he said, "That was horrible, knowing that I should have been on the other side winning that World Series with those guys that I grew up with, and they're the best." And just, you can't, I guess the biggest thing is you got to look at guys my age or older compare those guys across the board to Yachty. The catchers of today are more athletic. They're faster, they're stronger, they're bigger. They're made for that. But this guy was doing it long before there was all the weights and all that. I mean, these guys went out and partied all night. They did their thing and came back and they caught games in the old Busch Stadium where it was 140 degrees in the summertime. They had AstroTurf. And that's the thing. I mean, the guy's great. And like I said, to get him to meet him in person was hilarious. I've met, probably three of my biggest Cardinals as far as a fan goes. I met Bob Gibson in person. I talked to him. It was a great conversation with the kids from my Little League team here in Little Terre Haute, Indiana. I was here to Sherman-Williams opening a store. Met Ozzie Smith at a casino, had a nice conversation with Ozzie. And then I met Ted, and that was just, and then him to get the Hall of Fame and everything last year. And then that kind of backfired because they really didn't do much for him. And then now this year, everything going on, and he definitely deserved everything he's getting. And it was great. I mean, I couldn't be happier for the guy. So,
like you said, these baseball players, I mean, we watch them on television, and sometimes we forget that they are people too, and they're more than just machines. They're more than just, a computer generated number or stat that, we expect them to put out. And having said that, and I know we kind of joked earlier about watching the Cubs dismantle, but and it was, I loved it, and I won't retract from that. But as a baseball fan and watching guys like Rizzo and Bryant get the news that they're gone, they knew it was coming. But as a human being, just watching like Bryant break down into tears, you feel for that, because they did something special in Chicago. We effing hated it, but they did do something, and they grew up there together to all kind of part. They all did hit home runs, in their first game with their new teams. But to watch that emotion, if I had any ounce of me that felt bad for Cub fans, it would be in a situation like that, because I could only imagine seeing our core go their separate ways, and it would be the equivalent of watching like Yachty, Wainwright, and somebody that would be a hard thing for Cardinal fans.
We played pool on Monday nights at one of the local bars, and we were there, and they had Rizzo had come in the game, and he hit home run, and when he went in the dugout, he started crying, and they took him out of the game, and I thought, they've made a trade. They've traded him Monday night, and it didn't happen till like Wednesday or Thursday, whenever it happened. But I thought, this is his last day in this dugout. And then that's when it hits you. As much as I dislike the Cubs, I really do. But to see even like the Rizzo family taking pictures with the Ivy and knowing that's the last time they're going to be there, that does make a huge difference, and it resonates with me as a fan of baseball in general. You like Arenado going back to Colorado for the All-Star break. He said, I love this town. This is my town. This is my stadium. And so that always reminded me back to, Michael Jordan, and this is the house Jordan built. And you don't realize, seeing him in a Washington, whatever they're called, Wizards uniform, that was just weird. And it's the same thing as here, is seeing Rizzo in a Cubs uniform or in a Yankees uniform is just strange. It's just odd. But yeah, I hated it for them at the same time, but I guess I love it, because as much as we are always told we're the smug fans, of the world, because we're the Cardinals fans, we don't lose. Cubs fans have always been those lovable losers. As soon as they won that series, man, they become unbearable, hard to be around. One of my best friend's a Cubs fan, and he loves baseball as much as we do. I could put him on the show with us, and he'd have a nice conversation about baseball. But Jim is also realistic. He says, think about it. We're one of the highest grossing baseball teams in the sport, and we had to part ways with people because we can't afford them. He said, how dumb is it that you own the Cubs, that you can't pay the salaries to keep these guys, and to see the heartfelt, the strings being tugged on. But the problem is, if you think back, Theo Epstein did the exact same thing when he came. Those guys just weren't big names that he parted ways with. He cleaned house, and that's what he did. And I guess that's kind of we've been exempt from that for so long that we don't understand it, because it's never happened. We just don't do those things. To see a player like an Ozzie Smith, he kind of got shafted by freaking Tony La Russa, and you and I know I have no heartfelt love for Tony La Russa. I appreciate what he done. I think he's a great manager, all that crap you want to talk about. But the way he handled the Ozzie Smith situation was just horrible. Ozzie outplayed, outhit, did everything he had to do, and thanks for nothing. And Ozzie wasn't a part of the team for a long time. It took him years to come back. And to see this team without Ozzie was just weird for me personally, because, we go to St. Louis. If Ozzie took the game off, I was heartbroken.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I can understand both sides of that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was rough to see that, where we feel bad for Cubs fans. But that's short lived because at the end of the day we're happy about that. It's crazy though that they won that World Series and they had like dynasty written all over it.
Yep.
And that's where Cub fans they got unbearable was they got that World Series. I hated it, but as a baseball person, okay, I get it. But they had that sense of entitlement after that was like, this is going to be us from here on out. It's like, not so fast. That's not how it works. So to watch them now sell off, and I don't think they're going to be competitive again for a few years. I mean, I don't think any of the moves that they recently made that brought in some prospects, I don't think that's a team that's going to be buying it, during free agency. I think they're going to rebuild, like a total rebuild. And, having said that, with the remainder of the season, that also looks good because we've got a few more games coming up with Chicago. And when you've got them in Pittsburgh in the division, that's, teams you need to feast on. Unfortunately, that is teams that the Brewers and Reds can also feast on.
Originally when the trade started happening with Chicago, I kept thinking, these guys are free agents at the end of the year. Chicago could go back and re-sign these guys and bring them back and still get all the prospects. So that was great. The problem with it is now they're arguing with that Jed Hora, whatever his name is, the general manager there at Chicago. He's blaming the players for them not signing the extensions. And so now there's an issue between ownership or management and those former players. They can't return because I think they kind of felt like they got fleeced with by the Yankees over, Gleyber Torres and those guys they got for what's the reliever's name? I'm trying to think of. My mind's blank right now.
Campbell?
No, the Yankees. I want to say Castro. No, it's
Chapman.
What's that? Yeah, Chapman. When they traded for Chapman, got the series. Remember how that went over? He didn't like how they used him so much every game coming down the stretch, and then he ends up being a Yankee back the next year, and they got all the prospects for him. And that I think that set the tone for the Cubs for the future. They gave away all those prospects and they didn't have anybody to replace them. And you and I have talked about it and Jared as well, that when they start giving up all those prospects for a one and done, it really hurt their future. And then those guys start getting hurt. They just didn't have the guys to replace them. And that's, I think that's the upside of John Mozeliak is we have those replacements. They may be a year away, but I think we still have them. I don't see – when Bader was out and O'Neill was able to play his position and Carlson, we added another piece in some of those other players like Williams and those guys. And if the rest of the team would have been succeeding, we wouldn't even notice Justin Williams out there because he played decent outfield. He just didn't hit. But the problem was he wasn't hitting and neither was any of the other guys. Then when O'Neill got hurt, it was now we got two guys in the outfield, neither one of them hit. So we had the pieces to sustain one player loss. We didn't have the pieces for three or four players. And I think that's the difference in our timelines as far as what I see. I always envision a timeline across the board that a general manager says, okay, I have this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. He's going to be your 2025. So now until 2025, I have to figure out who's my shortstop, who's my second baseman. And I think the Dodgers, they don't have those problems because they just say, hey, we'll just go out and buy one. And I think that's the difference. And I mean, like we said before, the Yankees keep dropping money and they're still not winning. And so if they don't make the playoffs this year, is that the money ball issue come back around because what they're doing is not working? And so I think that's the advantage Mo has. We're still a 500 team. We're still not a losing team. Even if we don't make the playoffs, we're still not a losing team. I'm sorry. One game over 500 is a winning season. I don't care. Now, I don't want a participation trophy. I don't want to hear about that. But at the same time, we have the pieces to move forward. If you're a sub-500 team, you're making wholesale changes. If you're a guy that's one game out of the playoffs, you make tweaks here and there and you replace a couple of parts. And I think that's the difference here. We're just looking for parts and pieces.
Yeah, that was, and a big reason why I was surprised that the Rockies didn't move on from Story to get something for him, unless they have something lined out where they're going to sign him this offseason, which I don't think is going to happen. why not let him go and get something? Now, I mean, I'm not saying trade him to us because obviously they got what they wanted or asked for in the Arenado deal. I don't think there was anybody. I mean, we've got prospects left, but at the same token, to keep him only hurts your franchise, in my opinion. I mean, if you have no intentions of bringing him back, that's your chance to at least acquire something.
I really think that the whole Washington Nationals dropping both of their guys at the same time, I think that hurt the market for Story and with Baez, because Baez isn't playing shortstop. He's playing second base. So who are the big market guys wanting shortstops? Us. I mean, realistically, we were it. And nobody else was going to go out in the market and overpay for a guy that's going to be a free agent next year. And we didn't have to overpay because we're not in contention. So unless you're a team that could re-sign him right away, let's say the Texas Rangers, if they went out and got him, they'd have to sign him tomorrow, just like what the Mets did with Lindor. Well, is he a piece that's going to be there, and is he going to want to play in the Rangers, knowing they're rebuilding again, which that's just what he left. He might as well stay in Colorado if that's what he's going to do. So I think the market wasn't there. And so I think what happens is I think they look at it, they're going to get a draft pick or whatever in compensation, and that's that. And so maybe they let him test free agency and they say, okay, somebody's going to give you $200 million for an 8-year deal. We'll give you 210. Stay here. You already have a house here. Just stay here with us. Maybe that's their outlook, or maybe they just didn't get the offers because evidently, really, there's only one team looking for shortstop, and that was LA. And if you're Colorado, are you going to trade in the same division unless you're getting a ton of prospects? And I don't see the Dodgers saying, hey, yeah, Colorado, let us help you rebuild so you can beat us 3 years from now.
Yeah, now the Dodgers have Seager and Turner, even though Seager's a free agent, but that they loaded up. But, it's just, I don't know. It's crazy to think that you don't improve the team. But like you said, at least you get a compensation pick. There was even rumor that the Yankees were trying to get him and was going to put him in center field of all places. I'm like, the thought process behind shit like that, like to me, that's like us trying to have Colton Wong play the outfield. That was just a piss poor experiment. I don't know why we tried that. These guys are athletes, but if they've never played a day at that position, at the major league level is not the time to do something like that.
He got hurt.
And he got hurt.
He got hurt playing the outfield. That's what happened. He was playing where he hadn't used. I mean, did you see the other night? Betts played second base for the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Because his shoulder, they didn't want to stick him in the outfield. And he ended up diving on his shoulder, making a hell of a play.
Yeah.
But he still dove out of a position. But he played second base in college or in high school, and he played in the minors at second base. So that wasn't an unusual place for him, but still been 8 or 9 years since he played it.
Yeah.
But and that's the thing. Colorado, I don't understand their logic at all. I haven't since the whole Arenado thing. They haven't drafted well. They haven't signed well. Their ballpark is not pitcher friendly. Well, like they kept their pitcher too, Marquise or whatever his name is.
Yeah,
they didn't get rid of him either, and they said they're going to build around him. So maybe they're telling Trevor, hey, we're going to build around you two guys and for the future. And Gomber. Oh, wait a minute. And but I don't know. I think Mo did the logical thing here. Let's just go ahead and get small pieces that we need to get through this year. Let's not give up the franchise. Let's move forward. Whereas, like, if you're a Dodgers, they're an all win, all now. Let's go all in and win. That's how they're built. That's what Houston's built for. But I think teams like, even the Red Sox, they're young. I mean, they've got a lot of young talent outside of their DH, but the Minnesota Twins, I never understand their logic ever. I've never understood it. We can't afford. Oh, let's go pay Josh Donaldson a shitload of money. And he's washed up. I mean, he's just old. I'm sorry. You don't give that guy that much money. You sign him to a 1 or 2 year deal. There was a reason nobody else was offering him a boatload of money. Even Atlanta didn't offer him a bunch of money. He was there. So that's the thing that always scares me when you're the team you're with, when they're not willing to offer you that kind of money, there's a reason. They know something. Or they just can't afford you. I mean, that's the two reasons. If you can't afford them, It's not a secret going into the offseason. You're not going to be able to afford him. The team's not going to hit the lottery in November and say, I've got a couple $100 billion, let's spend it. It just doesn't happen.
Right. I was a little surprised to see that, DeYoung is actually a year younger than Story is. Now, obviously, stat-wise, I'm going to take Story over DeYoung, even though Story plays in Colorado, just for the fact that he does steal bases. He does drive in runs. He's more of a contact hitter. I don't know that plays as well here, but we kind of had some question whether Arenado would be that. And, he's done well, except for like the last month. Arenado's kind of cooled off. I mean, I think batting around 200 his last 20 games at Busch Stadium. So his average is kind of dipping down a little bit. But with the glove, I mean, you're not going to get anybody better than that. And, if we do make a move, that would be something, again, in free agency. It would be between him and Correa. And I know Correa being an Astro, this has got the asterisk there, but he's 26 years old and, does have a good glove. If he can stay healthy, that in my opinion, but those guys are going to cost a lot of money. Whereas a Simmons, I believe, is 31 years old. You could probably get, a good 2 or 3 year run out of him and probably get the same stats. So that'll be interesting to see if that'll be what the Cardinals, address this offseason. But just looking at the remainder of this season right now, I've got the Cardinal game on and we're tied at 4. I know you're probably a little bit ahead of me, so I'm not quite sure if they're going to pull off this game against Atlanta. But looking at Atlanta, they're 3 games out of first place under 500. Philadelphia is 2 games over 500 and they're a game and a half back. So the NL East is really a toss-up with the exception of Washington, who obviously sold off, and the Marlins. And the NL Central, it's a battle, between Cincinnati and St. Louis on who's going to catch Milwaukee. But the Cubs and the Pirates are bottom feeders there. The West, you got San Francisco that's leading the way, 27 games above 500. That is effing unreal. And the Dodgers right behind, 20 games over 500, 3.5 back. San Diego at 62 and 48, 6.5 back, with Colorado and Arizona being the bottom feeders. So as it stands today, again, we're 10.5 back as of recording this. Do you think, because we'll wrap this up in saying, obviously we can do this each time we do an episode, but with 2 months remaining in the season, there is 7.5 to the wild card, 10.5 for the division. Whichever path we take, do you think this Cardinal team, the way it's assembled now after the trade deadline, can make that run and get in even for a 1-game play-in? Do you think they can do it this season?
No. Realistically, I don't think it can happen. I think there's too much against you. I mean, like you said, even with Flaherty coming back, you don't know what he's got. Is he going to be tentative as far as he's going to be nervous about the arm? I would not, honestly, at this point, I would let him come back, maybe pitch a game, and I would shut him down. I mean, why risk an injury for a team that's not going anywhere? Let him recoup, let him come in next year. That's what I would look at it. And like I said before, I've said all year, bring the kids up, let them play. I mean, I hate to see a wasted year for Arenado and Goldie and even Waino and Yachty, but this is a team sport, man. It's about next year now. I really do.
If I go with my gut, obviously I got to agree with you. My heart thinking even as much as they did last year, overcoming the odds with as many games that they had to make up, due to COVID and the doubleheaders, they're not having that this year. They're not going to have that run, and there's no reason for me to think that they will. And I say that just because of the mentality of let's win a series. You can't have that mentality this late in the year. It needs to be win every game at all costs. Some of that needs to happen with the managerial decisions on who he slots where, how long he leaves a guy in to pitch. There's a lot of things that go into this. I think realistically, in my opinion, it's still the division or bust. I don't think the wild card is an option, even though that's shorter games to get to. I think, the thing that screws us right now is, again, Milwaukee, their schedule is the toughest of the 3. Cincinnati's got the easiest of the 3. And when you're already counting down whether they win or lose for us to gain a game, and we're 2 months left of the season, I don't think it's a good sign. I will say I'd ride this out for the next couple weeks. If there is not a long stretch of winning baseball in that time, I agree with you. Shut it down. Prepare for next year. Because right now you're still hanging on by a thread, but that thread is getting thinner by the day.
I mean, if we can't win the series against Atlanta, then we don't even deserve the run. I mean, that's simple as that. I mean, they're 2.5 games out of out of the wild card themselves, and so you're looking at it. You're looking at a big dog fight. If San Diego falls off completely off the face of the planet, you're still looking at the Mets, the Braves, and Philadelphia all having a run ahead of us, and so there's a 4-team race just to get to the wild card game. But the good thing about that is, like you said, Milwaukee has to play all of those above player teams, and that's the thing. Is Milwaukee capable of playing all out baseball for the next 2 months? That's what it's going to come down to. They're going to have to play the next 2 months like every game is do or die for them. And whether we like it or not, I mean, the pressure's not on us. It's on Milwaukee. And if they're outside of Milwaukee for some strange reason, they don't have a lot of power. They don't play well outside of Milwaukee. I've heard there's this fan thing they got going on where the ball jumps for them and nobody else. I don't know. But just a rumor I've heard somewhere. But even like Yelich is nowhere near the player they thought they had a couple of years ago this year and last year. I mean, I knew injuries, but again, I don't hear our fans squawking like we did about Ozuna, and they signed him to a huge deal. So, that's another reason I keep saying I hate them big deals. You
could rewind 2 years ago to where everybody and their brother was basically saying, why Ozuna, why not Yelich? And basically, it didn't matter who we told this to. We asked for Yelich. They weren't trading Yelich.
We asked for all 3 outfielders at one time. We said, let's take all 3. Yeah. And Mo was told Yelich they're building around in Miami. We're going to build around him. The other 2 you can have. And Stanton decided, thank you, Stanton, that he wanted to be a Yankee. And so, that's the thing. And I was the guy. I mean, like I said, I was like everybody else, man. When Giancarlo Stanton was out there, we were all on board, man. This guy's coming. This is just like Arenado, And then when we got Ozuna, I was like, what? We got who? And then, the Ben Sorettis of the world. Thank you, Ben. I know you watch the show. But he started doing the statistics, and it made sense. It really did. Ozuna made sense. He was the cheaper player. He was an all-star. He hit for power. He was young. And he wasn't going to cost us all the guys we were going to give up. Well, he kind of did.
He did. And, the weird thing, too, and again, is because baseball, there's no perfect, eye behind the 8 ball, basically. But like Stanton missed 2 years. He was injury play, couldn't even stay on the field. And so Ozuna, no matter what he did, was providing more production than what Stanton would have at a much lesser cost. So it's definitely crazy. But, yeah, to wrap up the show, to think the Cardinals are 10.5 back, it sucks. As a fan, it is rough. I have enjoyed, getting to see Arenado and, Wainwright and Yachty reaching milestones that they've, reached. And I'm not ready to turn off the rest of the season, but it is harder to get, excited knowing that, we're backs to the wall, and you listen to the same tired ass post game interviews from Schilt where we got to tip our cap to. If I hear that one more time, I'm gonna reach through there and smack the shit out of him.
Why don't they send Maddox out? Maddox just say, yeah, our pitching today sucked. We're done. Send out Jeff Alberts. I'm sorry, I can't teach hitting. Something different.
Something different, yeah.
Let him go after one of the reporters. At least LaRussa was good for that.
Right. Well, hopefully when we jump back on a week from now, we can. Looks like the Braves are going to pull
5-4.
This one.
Yep, 5-4.
7-4 now.
Yeah, mine says 5-4 still.
Oh.
7-4. Yep. Again, like I said, how much more fun would it be though if you brought up Perez and Knezer and Herrera and those guys caught on fire and started playing ball? How much more fun would it be then? Because even if they were losing, you're seeing the future play, and that's the differences. If I know what Yachty's meant to this team. Trust me. I've had my frustrations, of getting old. Trust me, I'm old. But, even watching Wainwright, I want to say it right here, right now. Wainwright is going to retire. He's going to be in the broadcasting booth on the radio or on TV. He's not going to be back, folks. I hate to be that guy. He's not coming back. And so, but no, I love the Cardinals. You know that, man. I want to see the 10-game run. I want to go see us win every game. I want to see us pull this game out tonight and win every game going down the stretch. And Waino and Yachty go out with World Series championship rings on their fingers. And that's how I want it. But that's the storybook. We know the storybook always doesn't happen.
Well, I'll wrap it up by saying this. Two things. Anybody that's watching this video, we appreciate everybody that tuned in. This is our weekly show that we put out. It's episode 22. If you would, don't just hit the like and subscribe button, but share this content out. It makes it easier for us to reach more fans. If you made it this far into the video, you can agree or disagree with Larry and I's take on whether Wainwright Molina will come back, whether the team will or won't make the playoffs. Leave a comment on the YouTube channel on our videos. We will respond to each and every one of those, but we do appreciate everybody that's tuned in here, and they do each and every week. We're well over 1,000 subscribers now, which is exciting. Still pumping out content on the Facebook page and Facebook group. Even though a lot of people are complaining, there's more and more people joining that daily, so we appreciate all of those. If you're not into the video podcast, you can also catch this on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, but we much prefer you to tune in to YouTube. Whether or not you got to put up with these ugly mugs or not, is beside the point. Small price to pay, when everything else is absolutely free. So we do appreciate that. I will say that we missed Jared Redwine yet again, but Larry and I were not sure if he's how long his hiatus will be. He's a very busy man, but we do miss you, Jared, and hope you rejoin the show soon. Appreciate everybody that's tuned in. Larry, you got any final words?
Hey, let's go Cardinals. Win it all.
Hey, in that movie Major League, where the managers, let's just win the whole fucking thing.
Exactly.
All right. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Go Cards.
Go Cards.